All right, today we're going to dive into a pretty thought-provoking framework for self-reflection within Christianity. It lays out 10 potential warning signs of what the source calls fake Christianity. And just to be clear, this isn't meant to be a tool for judging others, but more like a mirror for our own personal examination.
So the source material we're digging into today kicks off with this really powerful statement. It sets the stage immediately, making it clear this is all about authenticity. It really just tackles that tough issue of people who say they have a Christian faith, but their lives might not exactly line up.
Okay, so to really get what this is all about, we have to look at one key word: hypocrite. The source goes back to the original Greek meaning, which is basically an actor or pretender. This kind of reframes the whole thing, right? It's not just about making mistakes or sinning. It's about consciously putting on a performance, playing a role that isn't real.
Now, before we get into the list itself, this is super important. The whole point of this framework is explicitly stated. It's meant to be a personal mirror. It's for self-examination, for repentance. It's absolutely not supposed to be a weapon we use to judge other people.
All right, here's how we're going to break this all down. First, we'll talk a bit more about the problem of hypocrisy itself. Then we'll get into the signs, which are split into 3 groups: what's going on inside you, how that shows up in your actions, and finally, what you actually believe at your core. And we'll wrap it all up with the main point, this call to look at ourselves.
So first up, we're looking at part 1, signs of the inner self. The framework starts here, by looking inward, because it's all about those internal motivations and character traits that you can't always see from the outside.
The very first sign on the list is being greedy and selfish. And the idea here is that someone can look totally polished and put together on the outside, but inside, it's a whole different story, one that's really focused on greed and self-indulgence.
And to back this up, the source points to a quote from the book of Matthew. It's this really powerful metaphor, right? This idea of a cup that's sparkling clean on the outside, but absolutely filthy on the inside. It just perfectly captures that conflict between appearance and reality.
Next up, sign number 2, seeking attention from others. This one is all about the why behind your good deeds. Are you doing them for God? Or are you maybe doing them for public recognition? For the praise, for the applause.
And the third sign that happens on the inside is having empty words. You know what this looks like, right? It's when someone can say all the right spiritual things, quote all the right verses, but their everyday life just doesn't back it up. The words are there, but the follow-through isn't.
And that's actually a perfect segue into our next section, part 2, signs and outward action. Because this is where we see how all that internal stuff we just talked about starts to show up on the outside and how a person actually behaves.
Okay, so this slide groups together 4 different behavioral signs. The 4th sign is deceiving people. Appearing harmless like a sheep, but secretly being dangerous. The 5th is sin without repentance. And the key here is not just sinning, but being comfortable with it. The 6th is hating other Christians. And the 7th is disobeying God, which often looks like someone trying to create a customizable faith that doesn't really require any sacrifice.
Now this next one, sign number 8, is really interesting. It's neglecting what's important. And you can see the sharp contrast here, right? The framework points out this tendency to get totally obsessed with minor religious details, like arguing online or focusing on tiny rules while completely neglecting what the Bible calls the weightier matters, the big stuff like justice, mercy, and faithfulness.
All right, that brings us to our last big category, part 3, signs of core belief. So we've looked at the heart, we've looked at actions, and now we're digging into the absolute foundation, what someone actually truly believes.
So, sign number 9 is mixing other religions with Christianity. The idea here is that you're watering down core Christian doctrine by bringing in beliefs from other spiritual systems that the source says are just plain incompatible.
And to make it really clear what that could look like, the source gives some modern-day examples of what it considers deceptive teachings. You've got things like believing all roads lead to God, the idea of manifesting whatever you want, looking to horoscopes for guidance, or even fortune-telling.
And here we are, the last sign, number 10, not focusing on the gospel. The source argues this happens when people start to compromise too much with the culture around them, and in the process, they lose sight of the central message of their faith.
So what does that really mean? Well, the source explains it's when your behavior sends the message that you need something in addition to faith to be saved. The classic biblical example given is the Apostle Peter. Out of fear, he acted as if non-Jewish believers had to adopt Jewish customs to really be accepted.
So, after going through all 10 of those signs, the framework brings us right back to its main purpose. The conclusion, the whole point of this entire exercise, is a powerful call to self-examination.
So here they are, all 10 signs laid out together. And when you see them like this, you can really get the full picture, can't you? They cover everything from internal motives like greed to outward actions like deception, all the way to your foundational beliefs about faith itself.
And really, to nail this whole idea home, the source points to this central call to action from the book of 2 Corinthians. Examine yourselves, test yourselves. This verse just hammers home that the primary goal isn't judging others, but honest inward reflection.
And that leaves us with this final, really important question to think about. Based on this framework, what is the real difference between genuinely struggling in your faith and actively living a double life? It's a question designed to make you think a little deeper about where that line is actually drawn. Thanks for joining me for this explainer.